Fellas, tomorrow is finally the day. Edge of Fate will be launching, which will mark the start of a brand new multi-year saga inside of Destiny 2. This is going to be shaping the foundations for the game forever. And there's a lot happening with this update. And if you haven't been keeping up with all of the reveals, no worries. Today we're going to be going over the 20 biggest changes arriving in Edge of Fate tomorrow. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting with number 1, content delivery. This is arguably the biggest change coming this year. You see, unlike previous years, Destiny's content rollouts this year will be smaller, but more frequent. Instead of one major expansion a year, followed by 3 to 4 seasons, instead, we're going to be receiving 2 medium-sized expansions each year, with a free major update positioned between each expansion. So the way this is going to work is Edge of Fate will be launching tomorrow. Then come September, we're going to have Ash and Iron. The next expansion after that will be Renegades. This is going to be around December. And yes, it's a Star Wars-inspired DLC. And then finally, March 2026, we will have Shadow and Order. Now, the major updates are going to be free to all players, and they're going to include things such as new and reprised activities, new sandbox metas, new events, new modifiers, and challenges, as well as new gear and artifact mods. And come Ash and Iron, we're actually going to be returning to the Plague Lands. Now, for my sweet little new lights that don't know anything about the Plague Lands, this was a location back inside of Destiny 1 that came to us in the Rise of Iron expansion. Now, in Ash and Iron, we're going to be getting a brand new type of game mode that Bungie said we have not seen yet. This one is going to be called Reclaim. We'll also be getting a new exotic mission, 2 new exotic weapons, new gear, new pinnacle ops, as well as an epic raid. Now, as for what we're receiving in Edge of Fate, that's essentially what we're going to be covering throughout this entire video. I just wanted to give you the layout of the content we're going to be getting over the next year, and I really do hope it lands. Taking us to change number 2, a new saga. Edge of Fate is going to be the very beginning of a brand new saga within Destiny called the Fate Saga. The next 2 expansions that will be arriving in 2026 are Shattered Cycle, which will be in summer 2026, and then in the winter of 2026, The Alchemist. Story-wise, we know that initially it's going to be heavily focused on the Nine. The catalyst for this story is that the emissary of the Nine, who is Orin, decides to quit, and the Nine are looking for replacements. Now, we don't really know who that may be. Maybe it's us, maybe it's Lodi, or someone else is up for speculation. Now, we also know that there's going to be links to the 1950s and Chicago, which is extremely interesting. No lie, the collector's edition here recently just went out, and dude, the lore is getting crazy. Supposedly, Graviton Lance was the weapon that killed John F. Kennedy. And the speculation is that it was Lodi who did it. Crazy, I know. To say we're in uncharted territory is an understatement. Change number 3. We're getting a new destination, and with it, abilities and puzzles. Edge of Fate is bringing a new destination, that being Kepler. Now, this destination is being pitched to us as a destination different from any we've ever experienced. It's been inspired by Metroidvania titles, featuring a non-linear campaign, meaning you're not forced to complete a selection of missions back to back. You could just do the main story if you want, or you could do side quests, talk to different characters, or just explore at your own pace. Now, similar to the final shape, the destination will unlock more as you explore and complete missions. In fact, exploration throughout Kepler will be pretty much the key feature of the destination, with many puzzles and secrets that we'll need to complete to progress, and more that you can just find by just exploring. Now, to solve these puzzles and secrets, we will be given dark matter abilities. These will be locked to Kepler's destination and will include Matter Morph, Void Relocator Cannon, and Matter Spark. That's right, baby. Fellas, we could turn into a ball. Now, look, we've memed on this thing, and I hope it's going to be good, because Bungie shows us this damn ball every chance they get. Now, as far as the Void Relocator Cannon, it's similar to a Scorch Cannon, but you shoot and ricochet off specific targets to bypass laser walls. And no, you can't eager edge through this thing. I've already tried. Matter Morph allows us to telekinetically control objects. This is going to replace our melee ability with this Strand Shuriken that we'll use to throw at glowing objects to shift their position in space. And we'll use this to create platforms and unlock areas of the map. And when you throw these at enemies, they also deal damage and suspend them. Now, Bungie mentioned that they intentionally designed these puzzles with sequence breaking in mind. The more you upgrade your abilities, the more options you have at your disposal to solve these puzzles in unique ways. Now, change number 4. In terms of activities, one of the features that many folks are looking forward to is the inclusion of world tiers. Now, this is going to change the difficulty of the campaign and the world we play in, which is Kepler. We have our Brave difficulty, which is your normal mode. We have Legendary difficulty, which many of us tackle tackle day 1 so we can get the exotic that's associated with our class. But then, once you've completed this, it opens up more difficulty options. The next 2 difficulties will be Fabled and Mythic. Now, we saw this a few weeks ago. Fabled was set at 150 power, but gives you a 3 times reward multiplier. There's also a bunch of different modifiers and combatant adjustments, such as Multiplicity, Galvanize, Scourge 1, and Metal, which is the most interesting one as it caps players' power at 30 below. So think of this as almost like contest mode. Now, in a recent interview with Milo and Robbie Stevens, it was mentioned that Fable was going to feel more like a Nightfall in terms of difficulty, whereas Mythic would feel around the same difficulty as Master. But he did mention that the jump from Legendary to Fabled is not as big as the jump from Fabled to Mythic. Now, aside from higher difficulty equals better loot, there's going to be other reasons to run these higher difficulties, such as a quest on Mythic difficulty, which is going to unlock a variant of the Kepler armor set. I love little things that are like hidden behind difficulties, guys, giving us more reasons to hit these activities outside of just the one time. Now, change number 5. We are getting a raid, but also an epic raid. Now, an epic raid is essentially going to be the same raid that we're getting in Edge of Fate, but it's going to drop in Ash and Iron. And the way that it was explained to me was almost like a Pantheon style rework to these raid encounters. Now, what I mean by that, it's still going to be the same raid. It's still going to be the same consecutive order of encounters. But if you remember Pantheon, for instance, Rolk, Bungie decided to give us not 1, but 2 Rolks. They take the original raid encounters and they just add some spice to them. They give us some new mechanics, maybe some new enemy types. They change the encounters up a bit. And on top of this, we're also supposed to get more narrative and lore with these epic raids. Now, in the recent interview with Robbie and Mr. Raffle Waffles, Milo did ask about the epic raid, and Robbie describes it as permeating the original raid. Things like challenges that cover the entire raid or specific encounters. He also says to think of this as a part 2 to the raid, as the changes do relate to that story and the lore. I hope it's good, guys. I will say I am intrigued, but I really do hope Bungie mixes things up, gets a little crazy. Change number 6, something you have probably heard over and over that Bungie is so proud of: the portal. In the Edge of Fate, our destination menu is no more. I mean, it's still there, but it's not going to be added to in the future. Instead, what we have is this new menu called the portal, which puts all of our activities into categories, allowing you to hop right into a game mode fairly quickly based on what you're looking for. We have solo ops, fireteam ops, pinnacle ops, and crucible ops. Now, what this aims to do is to get people into playing the game faster instead of clicking through multiple destinations to find what you need to do. Rewards are also now visible, meaning if you're trying to hunt for a specific item, just simply sift through the activities until you find it. And the other beautiful thing is there are no reward caps like we've had in previous years with pinnacle rewards, meaning we could farm forever. Now, speaking of rewards, we also have the ability to modify the activities themselves. You can either grant yourself buffs or even debuffs, and this can affect your multiplier and therefore affect the reward you get at the end of it. I know not many people are that excited about the portal. I wish Bungie could just do a system that involves both, but without a doubt, the portal is something that they have heavily invested in, and this is the future of what Destiny is going to look like. Change number 7. Tiered loot. That's right, guys. Bungie is giving us a tier system. You see, Bungie has chosen tiered loot as their solution to solve reward scaling inside of Destiny. All of the new legendary weapons and armor that's earnable in the Edge of Fate will take advantage of this new system. Now, to put it simply, gear will drop with an icon indicating its tier, and this will range from tier 1 to tier 5, and this will depend on the difficulty of the activity that you're tackling. Now, as the gear tier increases, you will gain more benefits like enhanced traits, cosmetic upgrades, more stats, kill effects, etc. However, don't expect to earn the maximum tier rewards right out the gate. Higher tiers will require considerable grind. For instance, we may not even be able to acquire tier 5 gear until several weeks into the expansion, but the benefits will most definitely be worth it. Which takes us to change number 8, featured gear. All new weapons and armor will now be marked with a blue tag indicating that they are part of the featured loot pool. Now, featured weapons will receive an intrinsic damage buff, and featured armor will receive intrinsic damage resistance. Now, this buff will scale based off the tier of the gear in question. So, for instance, tier 5 for a weapon will max out at 10% extra damage, and tier 5 armor will max out at 15% damage resistance. Now, featured gear doesn't just include new loot. Some of our current exotics have also been added to this new featured gear list. These are hand-selected by the developers to align somewhat loosely with the proposed meta for the next 6 months. Now, despite not being tiered, based on some of the footage we've seen during the dev livestream, it appears that featured exotics will behave as if they were tier 5 and receive the maximum possible bonus, meaning they themselves should be powerful on day 1 in terms of more damage resist and dealing more damage. damage. Now keep in mind, this does not mean your exotic armor pieces here are tier 5. Remember, exotic armor pieces are actually going to be capped out at tier 2, and we won't see that update hit exotics until sometime next year. So when I say tier 5, I just mean it has the damage resist and extra damage that a tier 5 should have. Granted, we'll be doing testing on this just to make sure, but the point is that Bungie's intention with new gear is to create a list of loot new players know that they should both acquire and use. Now, some hardcore players are of course concerned that the new gear bonuses may be too strong. This is just one of those things, guys, we're just having to wait and see. At the end of the day, your old god rolls will still be effective in the new sandbox. However, towards the end of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing tier 5 weapons outclass even god roll tier 3s. Now, change number 9. Fellas, we have a load of new gear that's coming tomorrow. First off, we've got a few new exotic weapons. The 3rd iteration, which is a Void Scout rifle that will be tied to the season pass. Marking and defeating targets with this weapon will grant the user invisibility. We've got Graviton Spike, which is the first exotic hand cannon added to the game since Hawkmoon back in 2020, which is kind of hilarious because at one time, it seemed like Bungie couldn't stop giving us exotic hand cannons. Now, this one is going to be obtainable via the exotic quests. It has the ability to shoot both stasis and arc energy, and dare I say, might be one of the sexiest weapons I have ever seen. Then the new Desert Perpetual Raid will also drop a new exotic weapon, but at the moment, of course, we don't have any information about this weapon, and since data miners are getting nuked, it's a good chance we won't know. Now, each class will receive a new piece of exotic armor. Warlocks are getting a pair of gauntlets called Eunoia that will make Hellion projectiles more potent. Hunters are getting a chest piece called Morai, which grants their melee the ability to detonate and retrieve tangles. Titans are getting a pair of gauntlets called Milis Panoplia, probably killing that name, but this will give you the power to finally summon your throwing hammer. About damn time. Now, all of these exotics will be earnable via completion of the Edge of Fate legendary campaign. So highly advise doing the legendary campaign, guys, to get these guaranteed exotics. Now, if you like an in-depth look at each of these, we do have a full breakdown linked in the description below. We did get to play with them earlier this year, and we even have a mix of some of the gameplay here that Benny provided, so feel free to check that out. Now, a new archetype and a few new weapon frames will be spicing up the legendary weapon loot pool. First up, we have a spread shot hand cannon. Guys, it's a hand cannon that shoots like a shotgun. Think of it as like a sawed-off shotgun. Great at close range, but weak at distance. It also has the ability to roll with shotgun perks. Things like 1-2 punch, which is really interesting to see on a hand cannon. Next up, we have the first ever crossbow. This is going to be a heavy weapon that allows you to literally pick up your bolts after you shoot it, meaning theoretically you could have infinite ammo as long as you can retrieve the bolts. Yes, it works inside of PvP, which sounds terrifying. Now, in a similar vein as the crossbow, we're also getting another new bow archetype called the High Impact Longbow. Think of this as almost like Wishender, but legendary. It sports a longer, high-powered draw with over-penetrating arrows that are able to shoot through multiple enemies at once. Now, finally, we have the Rocket-Assisted Pulse Rifle. This is arguably going to be the best weapon in the sandbox, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a pulse rifle, but it shoots out a 3-round burst of high-damage rockets. From what we have seen in the gameplay, fellas, it puts out a ton of damage, which is probably going to be the first weapon we jump on first for our review. Change number 10, armor and stat reworks. Funny enough, new armor and Edge of Fates will also be receiving archetypes as well. You see, armor stats are being renamed to better reflect what they actually change, and Bungie has reworked to scale stat benefits. The first time ever, you will have the ability to stack your stats from 0 to 200. Yes, you heard that right, 200. Keep in mind, currently in the game now, you can only go up to 100, or you can go beyond that, but it doesn't give you any benefits. Now you're actually going to get benefits. Now, our new armor stats are going to be health, melee, grenade, super, class, and weapons. And if you're wondering why they're changing the names of these, it's to stupid-proof things. You see what I'm saying? Somebody looks at discipline, they go, what is this? Despite seeing a grenade icon next to it. Now you'll know that grenade means grenade, weapons means weapons, and melee means melee. Now these stats will be distributed based on an armor's archetype though. As you can see, each archetype will have a primary and a secondary stat. These will be the highest stat categories present on an armor piece. Now, a randomly selected tertiary stat will also be selected containing the remaining available stat points. The number of stats present on an armor piece is determined by its tier, with tier 5 being the best. Additionally, you can masterwork all armor and tune tier 5s to further increase the amount of stats present in specific categories. In addition to new stats, our new armor will now also offer set bonuses, providing us another layer of build crafting. So if you choose to run 2 to 4 pieces of the same armor sets, you'll see tangible benefits to your build. The main takeaway for this, guys, is that we are going to do everything we can to get that quad 200. It's probably not going to be possible, but we're going to try, man. And if we can make that work, hot damn it, that would be so sexy. And the benefits are absolutely amazing, as you can get things like increased melee damage, which is a multiplicative 30% buff at 200, or increased weapon damage, both against minors, majors, and bosses at higher stats, or an outright increase to super damage by stacking these stats. The point is, guys, going beyond 100 is going to be worth it. Farming armor is going to be something we are all going to be doing in this next sandbox. Change number 11. Now, with the addition of a melee stat that will now increase damage if above 100 points are allocated, Bungie has neutered melee damage stacking. Now, we have an entire video on this already, and we discussed these changes in great depth if you want to know a little more about it, but TLDR is that melee damage buffs will no longer stack multiplicatively. From now on, all melee buffs, excluding the melee stat buff, will be additive, and Bungie is increasing the percentage increase in damage of all melee buffs to compensate for this. Now, to put it in simplest terms, if you spec into melee, your base melee damage is going to receive a substantial increase next expansion, but the more damage buffs you stack, the more you're going to see diminishing returns when compared to the current sandbox. Essentially, Bungie is raising the floor but lowering the ceiling for melee damage in Edge of Fate. Now, obviously, this does hurt some builds out there, primarily the ones that have multiple stacking buffs, but for builds like Wishful Ignorance and Fletched Storm, things that are just taking advantage of single buffs, this is going to do phenomenally well in the next sandbox. Now, Glaive melee attacks have been updated as well to register as unpowered melees, but they will now be able to take advantage of melee-based perks. The Glaive melee will now trigger all effects that are currently activated by any melee ability, and because of these changes, our overall Glaive melee damage is being nerfed quite a considerable amount. Glaive melee damage against minors and majors has been reduced by 40%, and Glaive melee damage against champions and mini-bosses has been reduced by 28.5%, and Glaive melee damage against bosses and vehicles has been reduced by 50%. Now, I know you may be looking at this thinking, wow, Bungie just killed glaives. But in our melee testing, at least our theoretical numbers, legendary glaives are actually looking pretty good. We'll have to build into it a bit more, but I wouldn't write them off yet. And even Winterbite, I'm not completely writing it off on the off chance that despite its nerf, its damage buff will be multiplicative, which I hope Bungie does. Change number 12. With the new update also means a new seasonal artifact. Now, we already know all of the artifact mods arriving in Edge of Fate. Bungie showed this off in the TWA most recently. Everything here is very much stacked towards solar, stasis, and strand, as well as precision-based weapons, which is why many of the builds we've been recommending here lately have been surrounding those elements. At the same time, though, we are going to be getting additional rows inside of Ash and Iron. Similar to what we just received here recently with episodes this past year, we will be getting additional artifact mods throughout the season. And if it's anything like episodes, those additional mods definitely start to cook further and further as they have a limited amount of time to sit in our sandbox. Now, we are not going to be receiving a full artifact refresh until Renegades. So these artifact mods that you see here on your screen, guys, that's it, baby. For the next 6 months, these are your mods. Welcome to Destiny. Change number 13. Guys, we have a ton of exotic changes. Bungie is taking a pass our exotic weapons and armor, and their goal was to give more flair to our underperforming options. Some of the standout ones are things like Actium War Rig, which is getting a massive buff, the synergy here it's going to have, the damage buff it's going to provide to machine guns and auto rifles. We talked about it here recently for our Titan build, but this one is looking absolutely juice. Wicked Implement is another exotic weapon that's getting an entire archetype change, going from a 180 round per minute scout rifle to a rapid fire scout rifle. I can't stress just how good Wicked Implement is about to get. And the list goes on, guys. From Bastion to Monte Carlo to Hierarchy of Needs becoming the Galahorn of bows to Duality and DMT and Navigator. Are there some nerfs? Yes, but most of these are buffs. And even the ones like Devil's Ruin, which looks to be both a buff and a nerf, I do believe it's going to come out and be a net positive on the other side. In terms of other exotic armor pieces that are getting big updates, Dragon Shadow is about to become one of the most meta exotic armor pieces in the game inside of PvP. Oathkeepers is getting a substantial buff. Blight Ranger may actually become meta, despite the memes. Arthur's Embrace is getting a big bump in damage, as well as Liar's Handshake and the Spirit of the Liar. There's some other noticeable changes across these other exotics. For Titans, Path of Burning Steps looks really good. Actium War Rig looks really solid. Wishful Ignorance is going to be the one I'm really going to be focused on for melee-based builds. And for my Warlocks, Bungie is doing everything they can to make Starfire Protocol return to its former glory. Now, at the same time, Most Warlocks at this point have moved on to Verities. But I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm intrigued. Starfire Protocol at one time. God damn it. It didn't make me a Warlock main, but it definitely made me play Warlock a bit more than I normally do. And if it comes back, who knows, man. Other exotics, though, Wings of Sacred Dawn and Fell Winners, as well as Boots of the Assembler and others, are receiving some nice quality of life buffs, as well as just outright buffs. Point is, guys, we've got some major exotic changes that are coming that are really going to mix the sandbox up in Edge of Fate. Now, there are a few things that I do want to bring up that are going to hurt. For instance, Sanguine Alchemy is receiving a 10-second penalty before its perk activates after swap. You see, Bungie is taking a hard stance against loadout swapping exotics, and this is just an extension of the not swap solution Bungie has implemented in-game content. Another thing to keep in mind about exotic armor pieces, like I mentioned above, stat-wise, they will be the equivalent of tier 2. Bungie plans on expanding exotic functionality next year, but for the time being, they will be a slight detriment to our stat totals until a new system is in place. We covered this in the most recent interview between game director Tyson Green, CB Gray, assistant game director Robbie Stevens, as well as Milo. And if you want more information on that, we'll have a link to that video down below. Another thing that's also changing here in our sandbox is the stunning capabilities on certain exotics has been streamlined to be more, as Bungie put it, understandable. A direct quote here is that weapons that intrinsically have the anti-champion symbol in the weapon cannot receive anti-champion capabilities from the artifact or from radiant-like effects. Otherwise, they can receive external anti-champion capabilities and be able to continue their subclass firm anti-champion capabilities. So when you check the exotic of your choice, if a champion symbol is present, you will not be able to stun multiple champion types. Matter of fact, this is something that Bungie really went out of their way for. They don't want you to have the ability to stun multiple champions with a single weapon. And look no further than the nerf to the Stasis Shatter effect. Stasis Shatter effect will no longer stun unstoppable champions in Edge of Fate. It'll now stun overload champions. Now this has more to do with Chill Clip, but also more to do with Tenacious. You see, Tenacious is a rocket-assisted sidearm that has become arguably one of the most used weapons inside of PvE for obvious reason. It's good. It's got Chill Clip. It's slow, can stun overload champions. Its Shatter can stun unstoppable champions. And if you have anti-barrier sidearm, it can stun barrier champions. It was the trifecta, the one and only weapon you needed in GM Nightfalls because it had the ability to stun and deal with all champion types. Bungie, though, doesn't want that. Hence these changes above. Change number 14. This one is a little more long-winded, guys, but I gotta talk about it, and that's just the sheer amount of perk changes we have coming to us. So much here is being touched. Reconstruction is getting a buff where they increase the amount of ammo transferred per activation from 10% to now 25%. Paracause Affinity is getting a quality of life buff. Kinetic Tremors is getting a buff on different archetypes, most notably high-impact auto rifles, but also on hand cannons. 1-2 Punch will now work with all melee abilities. They've also done a perk active time increase from 1.22 seconds to now 3 seconds. Close to melee is getting its damage bonus increased from 30 to now 60%, hence why legendary glaives are going to be doing more damage. Attrition Orbs, they've increased the perk progress by 20% across the board. But get this, they've reduced the perk progress by 80% with aerial denial grenade launchers. Now, they mentioned this is surprisingly not as noticeable as it sounds. We'll see. Now, if you're wondering why they're doing this, they're definitely targeting Velocity Baton, which is a grenade launcher that's an aerial denial frame that has attrition orbs. Now, they've also done a change here to Eager's Edge plus Valiant Charge. Essentially, it's a nerf inside of PvP, but a buff inside of PvE. Now, Chain Reaction is getting a number of changes. Number one, thread links created by weapon perks will no longer activate detonations from Chain Reaction, but Chain Reaction, Dragonfly, and Firefly, which are AoE damage perks, will no longer use weapon archetype scaling against combatants, but instead use a new perk damage scaling that is more normalized between different weapon types. Now, this buffs many weapons with these perks, and you can see these damage buffs right here. We're talking astronomical numbers. 41% on fusions, 43% on submachine guns, 47% on auto rifles, a whopping 165% on linears, 123% on swords. These are pretty massive, fellas. So if you're looking through your vault and getting rid of things with Chain Reaction, Dragonfly, or Firefly, you might want to hold off. Change number 15. What's a new sandbox without a load of ability changes? My God. Consecration is getting slapped around, primarily on Prismatic, for obvious reasons. Drinker's Lash getting a buff. Storm's Keep is getting a slight nerf where you cannot stack multiple barricades together to give you more stacks of bolt charge. They've also done things for Titan, like increasing the target acquisition and tracking on the shield throw melee. We'll see how that sticks. Hunters. One of the best things that Hunters is getting in this next sandbox, and I've actually seen people say this is a nerf, but guys, this is such such a massive buff. Gambler's Dodge, which gives you your melee energy back when you dodge near an enemy. This is being changed. Melee energy return no longer requires dodging near an enemy. Now, you will have to build into the stats. I think you have to be 70 or higher, which is really not that bad. The point is that you can dodge anywhere. You don't have to be next to your enemies. So for my hunters out there that like to spam their melees and knife me from across the map, well, there you go. You now have more opportunities. Outside of that, there is some fragment slots being nerfed. Ascension going from 3 to 2. Winter Shroud going from 3 to 2. Gunpowder Gamble is getting a buff in terms of reduced self-damage, and final blows of all kinds now granting progress. On your mark aspect, it's getting a buff. Ascension will now be able to activate the following perks: Reaper, Powerful Attraction, Outreach, Distribution, Bomber, and Dynamo, as well as exotics like Heart of Inmost Light on the class item and Gerfalcon's Reserve Overshield. This is a big buff here to Ascension, guys. For my Warlocks, there are some nerfs to start off with. Hellion is getting its fragment slots decreased from 3 to 2. Bleak Watchers going from 3 to 2. However, Weaver's Call, both on Prismatic and Strand, can now generate threadlings on any final blow instead of just Strand final blows. Pocket Singularity is also getting some very odd buffs, which I guess is good, but I'm personally never going to use it. Outside of that, guys, there's a bunch of general ability changes. We're getting an increase in grenade damage against bosses, mini bosses, and champions by 15% for these grenades, which is pretty nice. And yes, Forerunner, the rock grenade, is actually included. Honestly, Bungie, you really should just make that nade almost like a mini nuke. Like, it just needs to do a tremendous amount of damage. Other ability changes: Devour is getting a nerf. Another one. Devour heal amount is going from 200 to 140. Strand suspend duration has been increased from 5 to now 6 seconds. Stasis, like we mentioned above. Shatter damage will now stun overloads, as it will not have any abilities to counter unstoppables. And Flux Grenade. Bungie has significantly reduced base cooldown time, and they've increased projectile size to make it easier to stick targets. Let me just say this: Flux Grenades are a one-hit kill inside of PvP, and dude, they're pretty good. Depending on this change, man, this really may become meta. Now, change number 16. For the first time ever, well, really not the first time ever, but for the second time ever, we are going to have a dedicated controlled area to test everything we just listed above. That's right, Bungie is giving us the firing range. Now granted, back in the day, we had a place we could test things out, and that was actually called the Tribute Hall. Now that got sunsets, but it wasn't perfect. The firing range here is definitely everything I could have asked for. We're gonna have the ability to spawn literally every enemy type in the game, from minors to majors to subjugators, hell, even champions. There are so many different settings we can choose from. There's even a laser on the side that if you want to test damage resist, you can just stand in it to see how long it would take for you to die with whatever buff you may have. Now, are we still going to be doing damage testing at things like Greg and Templar? Perhaps. I do like how definitive Templar is, especially in that small time frame. But I can't deny the fact that the firing range is going to be so easy for literally anyone to go inside of, for folks to mess around with. And this was definitely something I didn't expect Bungie to give us. I know we've been begging for it for years, but I'm happy to say it's finally here. Change number 17. Now, you may have noticed by this point that the damage numbers here look small. No worries, fellas. This is intentional. Bungie is squishing our damage numbers. Not only that, we're also going to be seeing a huge change in our Guardian power. This is going to be reset down to 10. Our new base power cap will be 200. And beyond this point, gaining power will function similar to how it was in the past. However, instead of being driven by just XP, in the Edge of Fate, seasonal bonus power will only be tied to your weapons and your armor, not the seasonal artifacts. By completing harder challenges in PvE or challenging yourself in competitive or trials for PvP, you can earn gear with greater amounts of seasonal bonus power. And this will increase your level beyond the power cap, which can then be infused to raise the power level of the gear that you want to use. So from 200 and up, you'll be working towards the pinnacle cap of 450. And this will be further increased to 550 when Ashen Iron drops. Along with the power level change, damage numbers, as you've seen, are squished. Now, Bungie, the way they explain this is that numbers just don't make sense inside of Destiny. You may jump into an activity and do 10,000 damage. You may jump into another activity, seamlessly hitting the same combatant, but doing 100,000 damage. One of the reasons Bungie is making this change is they want the numbers to be the same across the entire game, and squishing things down is part of that solution. Change number 18. Now, this is probably going to surprise you that I'm throwing this on as a change, but it is a big change. For the first time ever, we are not going to depend on RNG to drop us ammo, as in our ammo is going to be deterministic. Starting tomorrow on your HUD, you're going to see an ammo generation bar that's going to be live and below your weapons, and they're going to represent special and heavy, and they're going to function similar to abilities or a super. You see, kills and assists with anything will now progress these bars, and then once full, securing a kill will drop a brick of ammo matching that type. Weapons will now have ammo generation stat that's built in, scout and reserve mods are being deprecated, and instead both finders and new ammo generation mods will feed into this new system, allowing you to really build into your ammo generation instead of being at the mercy of RNG. It's a beautiful change, guys. Hopefully, it won't be too stingy. Now, change number 19. The reward pass is receiving a bit of a shakeup as well. You see, the pass has been reduced in price to 1,000 silver, and all rewards can be earned day one, as in there's no more time gating. Now, of course, I don't know what's all gonna be on the season pass, but if you play this past year, you have seen things like exotic catalysts being time gated, and we couldn't get them until the second act. That should no longer be an issue. Now, there will be 4 season passes total throughout the year prophecy, that being 1 pass per update. Now, Bungie is also reworking season pass boosts to work inside of the portal. The ones we know of are activity score boosts, prime Ingram boosts, weekly challenge boosts, and a generic XP boost. Now, the premium track armor rewards have also been reworked so that players will acquire a full set of both PvE and PvP armor. Now, those who just have the free track can obtain 5 pieces split between the 2 sets of armor, allowing free players to unlock a partial set bonus for each. Now, lastly, the reward pass is being reduced back down to 100 levels, but the rewards are supposed to be a lot better. Additionally, there will be 10 extra levels beyond level 100 that require 500,000 XP each to unlock and can only be acquired through gameplay. No, you can't buy these. And let me just say, 500,000 XP each, hot damn, that is a grind. Now, throughout the season, there will be more reward passes present during events, such as Arms Week and via the seasonal hub. Bungie plans on hosting more events throughout the year, so while yes, our seasonal pass is getting condensed, there will be other methods of earning rewards in a similar fashion. Which takes us to our 20th and final change. Fellas, we're getting the red subclass. That's right, the subclass you all have been speculating now for years. It's happening, it's going down. Yeah? Now, I know some of you I had for just a brief moment. No, fellas, we are not getting a red subclass. We're getting something better. Economy changes! When Edge of Fate launches, we're getting a bit of a shift in our economy. You see, core game activities, solo ops, fire team ops, pinnacle ops, crucible, and Trials of Osiris is going to become your primary source for glimmer, strange coins, and masterwork materials. And these rewards will scale alongside your gear, with better rewards dropping from higher difficulty content. However, better rewards will come with a greater cost. Higher tier gear will cost more to masterwork, and as the power gap between 2 pieces of gear increases, the cost of infusion will scale. Destination materials are also being completely deprecated, so make sure you turn those into Raoul. There's also a ton of different pricing changes from our different vendors like 81 and Zur, who are going to be offering a rotation of legacy weapons from Nightfalls and the Brave Arsenal. And if you're looking to get 20 free exotics, 8 is going to be giving those out for free when Edge of Fate launches. Now, I will say, if you're looking to get rid of your Assyrian and Nightfall ciphers, there won't be any use for them in Edge of Fate, but Bungie did hint that these will have a use come Renegades. We just don't know what that's going to be yet. So guys, that's it. Those are your 20 changes coming with Edge of Fate. I know, I baited you at the end. I almost feel bad with the whole red subclass talk, but don't worry, guys. I'm sure it's going to happen someday, one day. Destiny 4 maybe. Who knows? Worst case scenario, we'll get it in Destiny Rising. Either way it goes, guys, we will be playing Edge of Fate over at our stream at twitch.tv/Aztecross. We will be giving copies of Edge of Fate away all day tomorrow. If you want to jump in, see what the content is, or potentially snag a key for yourself, we would love to have you come by. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right. Go.